Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I want to welcome you to today's webinar and thank you for joining us for this January webinar for our series. Today, the webinar is about before, during, and after NOCTI testing. And we have Randy Van Hermit here from NOCTI, who will be our presenter today. Hi, Randy.
Hi, Lori.
So we're going to hold all questions till the end if you have any, but please feel free to have some comments or questions in the chat. Myself and Lori Theophilus are here monitoring the chat and the question and answer section of the Zoom webinar. So we will be here to answer questions, and then we'll open it up to for Randy to answer some questions after the webinar is finished, or after she is finished presenting. Also, we're recording this webinar, so I will be able to send a link out to everybody that registered and those that did not register and could not attend, and you're welcome to share that link with your staff that helps out with the NOCTI testing. So with that, I am going to mute myself and hand it over to Randy.
Thank you, Lori. So she kind of did a really great introduction. I'm just going to throw a little bit out there too. I had written down a few things I wanted to just quick mention. So good afternoon, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is Randy, and I'm a project coordinator that works for NOCTI. I actually am the one that works directly with the Pennsylvania program, so I'm very excited to be presenting this webinar today. I also want to thank you for joining as well. I think I have quite a bit of really nice content in here, and I think we'll be able to just discuss quite a few different scenarios. So I'm really happy for you to all be here and that we can, have this discussion. I do have quite a bit of information on the slides that I want to cover, but I also, kind of like the description mentions, I was hoping to get kind of some conversations at some point as well. So I might, depending on how it's able to work out throughout the webinar, there might be a couple areas where I ask just a couple questions or if somebody is willing to share a story. Otherwise, we might be able to open that up towards the end during the question part, like Lori had mentioned as well. But I am really looking forward to hearing some of your feedback as well. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, we include this one in all of our presentations. So if you've sat through a NOCTI webinar before, you've seen this slide. I won't spend a lot of time on it. It's just one that has some important information our lawyers recommend that we share. So we'll dive into the meat of the content here. So here's all of the topics that I want to discuss today. It's pretty much laid out there for you. Just like the title, we're going to talk about before administration, during the administration for both online and performance, and then as well as after the administration. All right, so I want to just take a moment here before I do dive in to get a little bit of information about the group today. I'm thinking maybe we could possibly use the chat feature. So I'm curious if you don't mind just throwing a quick chat in there. I'm curious how long that you've been administering NOCTI assessments. Really the purpose of the question is I'd like to try to determine if there's a few people that have been administering NOCTI assessments for a while and might have some good experiences that they'd be able to share with the group, or if we have some new people new to NOCTI in the group as well. I just want to try to get a gauge here of what the audience looks like today. Okay, excellent. So it looks like there's quite a few new people. We do have a couple experienced individuals as well, so that's very exciting. It looks like we have a very large variety of participants, so I'm excited about that. Thank you for sharing. Let's go ahead then and we'll kind of move forward here. First on the list is going to be before administration. I'm going to start off by warning you. I will actually be mentioning various resources that are available within the Client Services Center or even in the Teacher Resource Center several times throughout the entire presentation. And that's really simply because I want to make sure you're aware that there is more information available than just what I was able to squeeze into this webinar today. So certainly I would keep note of those resources to be able to reference those at any time as well. As an example, there is actually a before administration checklist that's available in the resources section. I'm only going to touch on a few things on that list today, because I really want to kind of focus on some more scenario-based situations as well. So I do encourage you to review the full list for more details on kind of the logistics of it. All right, so here's a snapshot of important decisions that will have to be made during the planning stages of NOCTI test administration. One of the first things is knowing what assessment to administer. So it's important to review the Pennsylvania crosswalk prior to administration to see which assessment is specifically associated to your program, so you can get that set up. A couple other things too you're going to want to determine if you're going to want any additional like supplemental items such as countdown kits. Take into consideration your testing windows. So that's going to help you decide on what test dates can be, or if you're going to have some makeup dates, those type of things. It's going to really kind of hone in on what options are available to you for that testing window. You'll also want to select or line up appropriate proctors and evaluators. Along with that, you're going to want to make sure that they receive adequate training. So you'll have to prepare for the ability to provide that as well. We always recommend going over or developing policies on late arrivals, early completers, use of electronic devices. You'll want to know prior to ordering if you want to administer multiple sessions or if you want scores to be displayed for the students at the end of their testing. If there's any special needs or accommodations that are necessary, you'll want to plan for material checkout or check-in, and I'll go over that a little bit further in the presentation for you. You'll read through the site coordinator guide located in the resources section. There are, of the Client Services Center, there are some other guides as well for proctors, evaluators, just kind of overall testing. Again, you'll want to check out those before, during, and after checklists that are available, and then read over any instructor prep packs. And that's for the site coordinator or the instructors as well. Those are for the skill-based or the performance component testing. And so you'll want to make sure that you review those prior to ordering, actually, because you'll want to make sure you have the appropriate materials, environment, equipment, those type of things. All right. So everyone that's actually involved in NOCTI testing should be aware of NOCTI's test security. Here's just a few of the specific bullets that I wanted to share today. However, please be aware that we do have an entire policy that's available right on our website at nocti.org, or as you see on the right-hand side, usually on a monthly basis, a couple times a month actually, we do offer a webinar that is very specific to the security policy, and that actually goes more in depth with quite a bit of information as well. So I always encourage people to attend that webinar if you have the ability to do so. We tend to get several questions regarding the role of the instructors. So I did want to provide a little more information. Instructors actually play a large role in preparing for NOCTI testing. So here's just a quick snapshot of some of that. They are actually encouraged to assist with logistical considerations and decisions. So as an example, they should be included for making sure that they select the appropriate test, or that the test that's provided is the one that's aligned with the crosswalk for their program. Assist students with test preparation, determine if study guides, countdown kits, blueprints, all of those are needed. Work with the site coordinator to schedule dates and times for testing. Identify suitable proctors and evaluators. Review instructor prep packs to ensure all materials needed for performance testing are available. And to verify the machines are in working order, that the room has proper heat, lighting, ventilation, those types of things. So they play a pretty large role in the preparation for administration. We do have resources that are available to the teachers in their Teacher Resource Center that's going to be able to help with all of that. We also, they have access to that, the password protected Teacher Resource Center, and they actually can have access to that as soon as they're entered into the Client Services Center. So they can start viewing instructor prep packs or resources prior to the students even being assigned to them. It's important that instructors are involved while keeping security in mind. So the do's and don'ts that are here is just kind of a quick view of some key factors regarding their role. Now that we've covered a little bit about what to consider for planning before administration, let's actually review a few of those supplemental items and components. So NOCTI offers products and services to make sure your students are prepared for successful testing. I'm going to discuss just a few of these that are listed right here because I'm going to go into further detail about some of them. But for example, the countdown kits are available for purchase. They include a teacher guide, content-specific posters, and then some other supplemental posters as well. And then, as I've mentioned a couple times now, the instructor prep packs, those are actually available right in the Teacher Resources Center or in the Client Services Center. And those are aimed more specifically for the performance-based assessments. They include lists of materials and supplies that are needed, information for setting up the lab or the shop, and then administration guidelines for actually both the multiple choice, but more so for the performance component. So that's a really big resource that I highly encourage everyone to use. So we recommend for teachers, site coordinators, even students to review the assessment blueprints prior to administration. It provides useful information for preparing towards testing. It'll include a standard and competency list, sample questions, overview of jobs for the performance component, a sample job so you can kind of know what to expect, administration time, the number of questions. It's packed full of a lot of valuable information, and they're completely complimentary, available right on the website. Study guides are also a valuable tool in preparing for NOCTI assessments. They actually allow the teachers and the students to work together to build confidence and knowledge as they prepare. As you can see here, here's kind of a list of the benefits of all of our online study guides. So it offers a little bit more than the blueprint offers, including quite a few more sample questions also. And it allows a little bit more interaction between the student and the teacher to kind of gauge where they're at. The packages, once you place the order, the package is going to include one teacher companion guide and then 10 of the standard student study guides, along with practice questions for each of those. And then you can order additional sets for the remaining students. Here's just the benefits of the online version, but they are available in paper pencil format as well. All right, accommodations are also available when necessary to meet IEP requirements. We have text-to-speech, a reader, visual assistance with enlarged text and graphics, assessment booklets, if they're available if necessary to meet a student's IEP. We have time extension options as well as multiple sessions. You can learn more about those on NOCTI.org. As an example, if an IEP indicates a student should have more time for assessment administration, it can be added prior to administration. It'll provide a couple different options as long as it aligns with that IEP. And then for multiple session administration, those can be used to accommodate school schedules, assist in those students who may experience fatigue during assessment administration. When the multiple session option is selected, a sampling of the assessment is provided during each session. So this means that the test could not be administered in one section or job at a time. Multiple session administration actually allows for the test to be administered over a period of time, but it typically should be completed within a short time frame. So we usually recommend within a week. Here are a few of the guides that are available. These should all be reviewed prior to administration. There's the Site Coordinator Guide, which basically provides everything you need to know to be a NOCTI Site Coordinator, including before, during, and after testing administration details. The Proctor Guide provides a general overview of the proctor's role. So we actually encourage the site coordinator as well as the proctor to review this. It's going to have a proctor acknowledgement form, information on test session instructions, guidelines for proctoring students, and then even a scripted instructions to read aloud to the students prior to administration. This guide is available to the site coordinators right in the Client Services Center. The Evaluator Instructions Guide provides a general overview of the evaluator's role. So this will include an evaluator acknowledgement form, test session instructions, guidelines for evaluating students, and then scripted instructions. So pretty much all the same things as the Proctor Guide, but it's aimed more specifically towards that performance component. This is also available in the resources section of the Client Services Center, and they should be provided to the evaluators in advance of testing for review. Okay, so I want to give this a try here if that's okay. That pretty much sums up some of the key points that I wanted to discuss before administration. Like I mentioned, there's more details that are available throughout the various resources that we have available. But before I dive into the during administration piece, I wanted to take a moment to see if anyone has any specific scenarios or experiences, maybe even tips for before administration that they'd be willing to share with the group. Since we have quite a few new people, it might be helpful for that. And then we can kind of maybe discuss some of those scenarios. I know we probably don't have enough time to take everyone, so I'll just, if anybody wants to put something in the chat just saying you have a story, maybe we'll unmute the first two people that mentioned something, and then we can kind of go from there if that's okay. Just take a moment here to see if anybody can think of anything, and we'll take a look at the chat section. Okay. I don't see anything yet, and I don't want to hold up the PowerPoint or the presentation for too long. That's perfectly fine. If you think of something as we go, put something in the chat, and then later on we can kind of circle back to it if you want. I'm going to keep moving along here then. All right, so next up then is what to do during administration. Again, I'm not going to be able to cover everything during the presentation, so please do pay attention to those resources that I mentioned, because those will provide some more information. But I am going to dive a little bit further into some specific scenarios for you during this one. All right, so now that you've finished the planning phase, you'll want to ensure that all of the following have been completed on test day. So accommodations, such as extended time or text-to-speech, have been set up for the students. Proctors and evaluators need to make sure the materials are checked out before testing. So proctor and evaluator guides include sample scripts for the beginning of the testing session as well. Make sure everyone is prepared for the administration, including testers, proctors, and evaluators. Ensure that computers are ready for the students, that lab shops are ready for performance assessments. Acknowledgement forms for proctors or evaluators have been signed for your records, and user codes and passwords are printed and ready to be handed out to the test takers. The materials that are checked out from the site coordinator on test day should include, for the multiple choice testing, instructions for proctors, list of students to be tested, the attendance roster, student test user codes and passwords. There should be one for each student for the online testing, and then the proctor guide. And then for the performance testing, this list would include instructions for evaluators, list of students to be tested, the attendance roster, the performance assessment booklets. Again, that should only be one for each student. The evaluator guide. NOCTI actually provides one guide for every 5 participants that are being tested. And then rating sheets found within the assessment booklets. Again, that should also be one for each student. After the testing is complete, all of these materials should be returned to the site coordinator to be checked back in, including any scrap paper that may have been used as well. Here are a few other forms that should be used during administration. So there's the comment sheet. This is actually used to document irregularities during testing and should be provided to the site coordinator or NOCTI. And then I've mentioned a couple times as well, there's that attendance roster. We do provide one, and that's for the students to be able to sign in. So during test administration, here's just some logistic considerations for room setup. For the multiple choice testing, you'll want to ensure the testing room is closed off from all other activity and is quiet and devoid of distracting movement, as the testing room and external conditions may have a significant effect on the participant's testing experience and assessment score. You'll want to verify that all computers are functioning properly and have the appropriate internet browsers available for administration. A computer setup document is available within the Client Services Center for reference. And then NOCTI recommends the ratio of 1 proctor for every 25 test takers. The proctor and the site coordinator should have reviewed the proctor guide prior to testing to determine the manageable number of participants per proctor. And then for the performance testing, that room setup, all tools, equipment, and materials needed to complete each job are available, and there are sufficient numbers for each of them. You want to verify that any machines that will be used are in proper working order and that there is proper heat, light, ventilation. NOCTI recommends the ratio of 1 evaluator for every 4 to 6 participants. The evaluator and site coordinator should have reviewed the evaluator guide prior to testing to determine the manageable number of participants per evaluator. And then depending on the setup of the jobs within the space, you can utilize your evaluators differently. There's a couple different options available. As an example, you can assign 1 evaluator for each job and rotate the participants, or the other way around, and you can rotate the evaluator. So jobs can be completed in a round-robin style, with some testers starting at job 1 and some at job 2, etc. In some situations, it may be feasible to evaluate students at a central location, such as an automotive repair business, a healthcare setting, or other setting where evaluators are available on site. And schools that are close in proximity to each other can actually work together to utilize the same evaluators and or administration location if necessary as well. Once the room is set up and administration is set to begin, here's how to get started. So for online multiple choice testing, you'll want to ensure students are on the appropriate web page and provide each student with their login credentials and then read those instructions that are provided. Testing scenarios like shown here ensures structured and secure testing sessions. This sample is for online administration. Students are verified as they arrive. They are then provided login credentials. Credentials are retrieved by the proctor after students are logged in, and then credentials are to be returned to the site coordinator after testing. So here's a few other scenarios that might arise during that as well. There's the last name error. So if a participant is attempting to log in and the error message received indicates that the last name does not match, you'll want to confirm with the participant they are inputting their last name in both last name fields. So there's 2 places for them to enter that. And then login requires the user code, password, last name, and last name again for successful access. So the participant is logging in correctly and still gets the error, then you'll want to contact NOCTI technical assistance so we can help. If you receive a lost connection during the testing session, you'll want to follow some instructions here below that I'm going to provide to resume testing. So 1, you'll close the internet browser and open a new browser. You'll go to the testing URL again. Have the participant log in using the original user code, password, and participant's last name. And then after logging back into the test, the participant should actually be taken to the last unanswered question. But if not, instruct the participant to go to the summary screen and click on the next available unanswered question. And then they should be able to resume testing. Again, if there's still issues with that, please don't hesitate to contact NOCTI technical assistance because we're happy to help. So here is how to get started with the performance testing. You'll want to greet and instruct the students to their first job, have each student sign in on the attendance roster, and then read the script that's provided as well in the instructions for performance evaluators guide. Very similar to the proctoring portion. The evaluator guides that are shipped with performance, so when you place the order for the performance testing and we ship the materials, the evaluator guides are actually shipped along with those, and they are provided directly to the site coordinator, they're going to have more specific details on how performance administration should go for each of the jobs on the assessment. They'll provide instructions as well as performance rating criteria. And these materials must be kept secure before, during, and after administration. Oh, sorry. So again, I'd like to just take a quick moment to see if anybody has anything specific that they're willing to share in regards to during administration, like if anybody's ran into the situation with the last name error before or anything else. I'll take just a moment here. Okay. Sorry. I'm not seeing anything come through the chat channel, so again, if you think of something while I kind of continue through this presentation, we can always discuss it later at the end as well. So finally, let's talk about what you do after the administration. So directly after testing, the proctors or the evaluators should count the assessment materials and be sure what is collected matches what was checked out to them. They'll want to ensure that all of the rating criteria is complete for each job per student. And then they'll need to return all of those testing materials according to that check-in process. Please keep in mind that there are some materials that do need to be sent back to Penn State Greater Allegheny after every year as well. So you'll want to make sure that you follow that policy too. Once the testing has concluded and the assessment scores have been released, there are several reports that are included in NOCTI Standard Score Report Package, all of which are very useful for informing, for being able to develop program improvement. So NOCTI scores all assessments and provides a score report with a summary of the multiple choice and the performance results. Official scores are available within 2 business days. Reports can be shared with instructors and students and should be reviewed after pre and post testing. And then competency reports can be used for student improvement, such as certain areas that need to be focused on, a tool for administration, for tracking, and more. Pennsylvania also has some custom reports that should be reviewed after testing as well. The PA individual score report, which will list each student's individual score and will include the competency level achieved. The PA skills certificate report, this will display the benchmark level achieved by students, along with scoring details such as pre-test scores. Report data is archived beginning July 1 of 2017. Please note that the reports for the current school year will be updated in the spring once NOCTI receives the benchmarks from PDE as well. The test activity by title summary provides test activity and skill level summary data for each title administered within the academic school year. So again, it's important to review all of this data among the various reports that are available to your site after testing. The NOCTI Standard Score Report Package, along with all of these custom reports, can be used to identify trends such as strengths or gap areas within your program that can be used towards program improvement. Also, after testing is complete, you'll want to make sure that each student receives all of the recognition that they may have earned. So PDE awards 2 certificates based on test scores for students taking both the multiple choice and performance test. As you can see here, there's the 2 options. These certificates are not available to download through the Client Services Center, but instead, they'll actually be sent to the school by Penn State Greater Allegheny before the school year ends. So you want to make sure that the students do receive these. NOCTI's Workforce Competency Credential. Here's just a few more of those credentials that they could earn. So there's the WCC, which is the Workforce Competency Credential. This provides a credible means of verifying the knowledge and skills expected by the industry. Students have the opportunity to earn this certification through both multiple choice and performance components. This is actually tied to NOCTI Job Ready, Pathway, or Employability assessments. So there are quite a few, there are a few on the crosswalk that would qualify for this as well. Same thing, college credit recommendation is tied to several of the assessments that are on the crosswalk. If a student receives a 70% benchmark or higher, they are eligible to receive a college credit recommendation report. You want to make sure that the students receive that as well. And then there's the opportunities for students to earn digital badges for both of these. And those are actually sent directly to the students via their email address once they entered that in. And then I'm going to give it one last shot here. If anybody has any feedback or stories, experiences, tips, any of those type of things that regarding the after testing administration, go ahead and throw a chat in there and we can discuss it. Otherwise, we'll continue along and wait to talk until the open question portion. Okay. So just in case, I'm going to throw this out there, just in case everybody hasn't looked at the chat section, it was mentioned in there, and this is a very good point, you will want to keep the evaluator rating sheets. Thank you for that reminder, because that is a good thing to mention. Since I haven't heard from anybody else, I'm going to continue on here. We don't have too much more to go. Here's just kind of a quick summary, a snippet about the before administration, a couple key things to take away. Same thing with the during administration, and then as well as the after administration. I've really touched base on all of these before, so I just really wanted to put a couple bullets out there for the summary to kind of sum it up, some of those key points. But really, that's the presentation for before, during, and after NOCTI testing. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for any questions, or again, if somebody's willing to circle back and share some of their experiences, we can kind of have that discussion. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to move to this slide here then. Here's all of our contact information. NOCTI does have customer service and support in several different ways. We've got our phone number, email. Everyone here at the office is more than willing to be able to help out if you do get any questions or if anything does come up. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to help. Thank you again for joining today, but that pretty much sums it up if there's no questions for me.
That's great. Thank you, Randy. That was some wonderful information. I know our site coordinators are right now in the process of doing the mandatory trainings through our iSpring dashboards that we put out to them. And there is a little bit about the testing process as a whole for before, during, and after testing. So this was a great, more detailed training that isn't gone into in the required trainings that may have helped not only some of our seasoned coordinators that participated today, but also the new testing coordinators that are out there for the first time this year or maybe just the second year. I just want to caution those newer ones to not get overwhelmed with the process. Just take it a step at a time. Follow the processes that are laid out for you step by step, and certainly review these training videos and these webinars as you need to refresh yourself with the information. So this webinar will be recorded. Again, I will send it out to everybody that participated today. Randy, would you be able to send me a copy of the PowerPoint as well so that I can send that out along with the recording?
Sure, yeah, I can do that for you.
Great. Perfect. Well, I don't see any other questions on my end coming through either. So with that, I want to thank you, Randy. That was an excellent resource and excellent information you provided. And everybody, if you want to just take note that we're going to have another webinar coming up in February for those that use NIMS testing. On February 19th, we're going to have NIMS with us. And then hopefully we have scheduled tentatively February 24th, we're hoping to get an update from the Department of Education and Kevin Springman for a webinar with that. So there'll be hopefully 2 in February, but I will send more information out about that. So again, thank you all for participating, and Randy, thank you always for your useful and great resource and information.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you all for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.